Kanpai.
Kanpai.
Happy World Whiskey Day, Stephen.
Happy World Whiskey Day to you, Christopher.
Thank you. I
We,
think
that
I
looks
must
like
have
whiskey
handled
you're
this
drinking.
glass a little too much. What's that?
It looks like whiskey you're drinking.
It is definitely whiskey that I'm
Yeah.
drinking. This is not apple juice or tea, I promise you. It is 11 p.m. here in Japan. Steven's in Fukuoka. I'm in Tokyo. It looks like I'm near the North Pole and he's somewhere in the tropics, but
Yeah.
it's just
Pretty
how the
warm here.
weather is
Pretty
these
cool there.
days. Yep.
Yep.
And
So World Whiskey Day. So I
World
was
Whiskey Day.
I was reading a little bit about this recently.
Mm-hmm.
World whiskeys are whiskeys that are not from predominant whiskey making regions or of predominant styles. But
Okay.
there seems to be a little bit of confusion about what that means anymore for lots of reasons. For example, Irish whiskey recently got lumped into world whiskeys in some event or some competition, which didn't make any sense because Irish whiskey conceivably predated Scotch whiskey,
Hmm.
right? So, but you got Scotch whiskey, Irish whiskey, Canadian whiskey, American bourbon, and rye. And now Japanese whiskey has elevated to becoming a standardized style, and everything else is world whiskey. That's how I
Everything else
understand
is
it.
world.
Yep. But there's some Japanese whiskey that's world whiskey because it's got Scotch or Canadian whiskey or American whiskey in it,
Right?
right?
I mean, I think we
Once you
probably
start
both have
blending, it
an example
becomes
of that, right?
sure. Yeah. Got
I
this
think,
guy,
yeah, you were
Akashi.
just,
I'm
yeah, I have the
pretty
same
sure
one.
it's got some non-Japanese stuff in it, most likely, as far as we know, or don't know. It just says blended whiskey on the label. They don't say where it comes from, but it's a nice whiskey.
It is. You recommended that I drink this in a highball, and I agree. This is
Yep.
really nice in a highball.
Yeah, super easy in a highball. Really nice. So, yeah, I think, we may be wrong because, again, they're not transparent. We don't know what actually goes in here. But given that it says blended whiskey on the label and we know how much imported foreign whiskey comes into Japan for blending, that is probably what's in that bottle. So, um, but yeah, but we don't have to be precious about that, right? Our motto is
If it tastes
if you
good,
like it,
drink it.
if it tastes good, drink it. With the caveat, if it's a price you're willing to
Yeah,
pay
a price
and it
you're
tastes
happy
good,
with. Yep.
then drink it. Because we don't really like price gouging either, right?
Sure. 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 Yeah, that's very fair. So are you
Yeah.
are you drinking a world whiskey then?
I don't think it qualifies, but I thought it was apropos for the moment. This is actually Glendalough Irish whiskey, but it's finished in Mizunara casks.
Oh,
This was
that's
recommended by
interesting.
Matt Healy, who online is Pot Stilled Matt. He's got his own podcast on Irish whiskey. He gets lots of the Irish whiskey makers on his show. He's actually working at an Irish whiskey distillery. He knows all the ins and outs, and I often, I've built this network of spirits experts over the years, and so whenever I'm out of my league, I'm in a category I don't really know about. I usually have somebody to ping. I've got somebody to reach out to. Matt's my guy for Irish whiskey.
Yep.
So when I went to my local bottle shop, which is really focused in Western spirits, I took pictures of the Irish whiskey shelves, and they've got like 40 brands. It's really impressive here in Japan to have 40 brands of Irish
Of
whiskey
what Irish whiskey?
in one shop. Yeah,
Holy
it's
crap.
he's probably got 150 Scotch whiskeys. Like it's a really really impressive shop. This shop actually focuses on selling to bars and restaurants um, rather than to consumers. So they don't really care if I come in or not. But that's where I usually will buy my spirits because they've just got such interesting things. But this Glendalough, it's 13 years in American oak bourbon, so ex-bourbon casks, and then finished in Mizunara. And it actually says, you can see, let me see if I can get that, Mizunara in katakana on the side of the bottle.
Yep. And
So
Armando is paying attention, and he said it. He said that 13 is amazing.
yeah, it's a very nice drink. As you can see, I have had some before. I didn't open it tonight. This has been open for a while. I
Yeah.
actually just poured this, and it's got such a nice nose. Get a lot of
Yeah.
spice. Um, yeah, there's definitely some cereal. Yeah, really, really interesting drink. So it's hard to find. I was really lucky, I think, to get it. Unfortunately, Matt, when he saw the shelf, he's like, "Oh, that one,
Yeah.
you need to get
Bingo,
that
that
one."
one.
Yeah. So it works out. It's good to have friends in high places.
Well, it's good that, yeah, it is, because people do that to us all the time. They take a photo of a shelf of shochu or almor and they're like, no idea, what do I do? And then we're like, blue label, third from the right.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
and how about you, Christopher?
I'm not technically a world whiskey, I guess. I mean, but maybe it is. I don't know. I'm drinking the John Meyer 4-grain.
Okay.
Which is an organic whiskey made in New York State, not in the city, upstate. The 4 grains, if memory serves, are wheat, barley, rye, and corn, and it's really good. 45% ABV.
Okay. You actually didn't even check the ABV on this. This is 46 for the Glendalough. Yeah, John Meyer, it's all estate-grown grains. They're a really cool distillery, small place. They make really interesting products. And I think I've got a bottle of, what do I have? I have one of their bottles here. Let me see what it is.
I've got a few of them. I've got the 4-grain, of course. I've also got these little 375s are nice. I got the corn, their corn whiskey, which is also really good, and then their bourbon.
Oh, I've got,
and I've also got their rye. Oh, you got the 4-grain too. I love the 4-grain.
I got a big boy. It's the 750 of the 4-grain. I haven't had this in a while.
It's every time I come back to these, I'm reminded like that's why I picked them up. You can actually get these online in Japan at if you Google it. So they are available here, which is why I have them. I didn't import them.
Yeah, no, I hadn't had this in a while. You're right. The 4-grain. I knew I had a bottle and I didn't remember where I kept it. It was in a different drawer than I expected. But it's got a much sweeter nose than the Glendalough. The Glendalogh's got a little bit of spice on it. It's a little dry.
Yeah,
but I like
it. The nose is really sweet on the 4-grain. It almost has like a little bit of there's like an apple aroma on the top, and then the really deep graininess. But there's a bunch of fruity aromas tucked in there with it, and it's nice and warm. I'm actually gonna create a banner right now just so that people know what I'm talking about if they want to Google it. This is the 4-grain whiskey. Oh, now I have to actually put it on the thing. There it is, the John Meyer 4-grain.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I can't decide which one is my favorite. I really like the corn too.
Yeah, the corn is good.
But the 4-grain might be my favorite. After the sweetness, it gets a little spicy, which is nice.
Yeah, I think when I tasted through them, because they were available in the shop here in Fukuoka, New York Wine Traders, before it closed, and so I was able to taste all of their products, and that the 4-grain was my favorite as well. It just seemed to have the most character, the most balance. I know Armando's had it as well, although I'm wondering if he'll chime in about which one of them is his favorite.
Yeah, so I don't know, is John Meyer a world whiskey?
I don't think so. I mean, everything's a world whiskey, let's be honest, right? People get so precious with labels and classifications and designations. And I don't know that 4-grain is an established style, right? It's not. I think the American established styles are bourbon and rye.
Yeah.
So anything that doesn't quite fit those buckets is just whiskey, right? And then I think it's fine to call it a world whiskey.
What else?
And you're drinking it in Japan.
So
that probably makes it a world whiskey that you're not.
I guess so.
It.
Yeah. It's from some other part of the world. What other interesting stuff do you have?
Well, I got stuff I haven't opened.
Okay.
I got this guy who, for people who remember this is the Soloist cask strength sherry cask Cavalan, and I actually haven't opened it. This was when we were doing the Instagram, my phone was on top of this. This was my camera stand when we were using Instagram for
multi-use container.
I mean, this stuff is just coffee brown, and I mean, look at the color.
Oh wow!
It is so dark.
It's so dark. It almost looks like it's a brown bottle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's a clear
Yeah,
bottle.
it is. I could see it up under your
Yeah.
fingers. But the bottle, if I didn't
Yeah.
see that, I would think the bottle was brown.
Yeah. Now I have had this, and it was really funny. There's a fun little place which I don't think you've been to here in Fukuoka called Bar Corazon,
I haven't been.
and it's an Italian. It started life as an Italian restaurant, and then they hired this former flamenco dancer bartender who's
Oh, you told me about this
Mexican,
place.
right? This Mexican woman, and she will make like the best Mexican home cooked meal for you if that's what you want to eat instead of the Italian food.
Of course it
You know,
is.
she makes the guacamole, she does the tacos, she does, whatever you want. And if there's
sounds
something, and once you get to know them, they're like, oh yeah, come on in, and we'll just say, Mexico no moriawase onegai shimasu, right? Please just give us chef's choice of Mexican food, and you feel like you're at the Sunday dinner table in Mexico. It's just like dish after dish after dish, all this great food. But when I was there one time with a couple of friends of mine, I looked up. I was just sort of I was sitting where I could see the bar area, and I recognized this big red box, this big red tube, and next to it was the bottle with about 3 or 4 fingers left. So that they had cracked it and they had some of it. And I was like, is that for sale? Can we order a glass of that? And they were like, yeah, no problem. And I said, how much? They're like, 1,000 yen.
Not paying attention, clearly.
I think this bottle cost like $300 in duty free in Taiwan, in the Taipei airport. And they were basically, what had happened is the owner of the restaurant had come in one time with his friends, and they brought that bottle and they drank through most of it and they left it. And it had been there for like 2 years sitting up on the shelf, and nobody had ever ordered it.
So yeah, whatever.
So me and my buddies
killed for it anyway. They don't care.
Exactly. So my buddies and I killed the bottle. It's a nice drink. It's not quite the sherry bomb that I expected it to be. It's a little drier, but it's a nice drink in its own right. So I have had it. I just haven't opened this particular bottle. Because these are pretty rare. I mean, it's, for one thing, it's 58.6% alcohol, and so that's cask strength. That's really strong. And then they're limited. This is bottle 345 of 503 bottles.
Oh wow!
So really, really limited runs that they do, and that's why that comes in this really, really nice. It's not actually leather, but it has the texture of leather. It's got the little latch on it and everything. But really nice. I've got another one of theirs, which I actually haven't thought about in a while because it's so far back here. But let me grab that.
Out of sight, out of mind.
This one's even more precious. It comes in a wooden box.
Wow.
This is Fino Soloist. So this is, again, sherry cask, Fino sherry cask. And their packaging's fantastic. Just look at the wood box.
Yeah, that's a keeper.
Right. Yeah. This isn't something you just, drink after work on a Tuesday.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't be able to afford to, that's for sure.
And then this is 57.8% alcohol, bottle 148 out of 344.
Jeez. Okay, so
yeah, so really, really limited
cask offering.
Yeah, yeah, and you can really only find these in like really premium liquor stores or in the airport in Taiwan. Which for a while I was flying EVA. EVA Air has so I could fly to Taipei and then to Fukuoka at almost the same amount of time as it took to fly to Tokyo and then Fukuoka, and it was cheaper.
Okay.
So I did that a few times, picked up a couple of these bottles because it's like, well, I saved money on the flight. May as well splurge on the whiskey.
There you go. There you go. I've seen the Kavalan series in the big camera in Tenjin in Fukuoka. I think I've seen at least one of them in there. But I don't know. I mean, I think they come out with a whole raft of expressions over time, so I don't know which one it was.
Sure.
They had Soloist, and they had one other one too, I think.
Yeah, there's a couple of nice. I mean, they have more affordable, not mass market, but because they're a pretty small distillery, but they have more affordable offerings that are it's just the bottle. You're not getting the fancy box or anything like that. But they've won some awards. They've done really well. They're definitely putting Taiwan whiskey on the map, which is cool. Because more whiskey from more places is good, as far as I'm
always
concerned.
a good thing. More
Yeah.
good whiskey from more places is
That's
a
true.
good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good is key in that. But
Hmm.
nice. Anything else on your end you got or want to talk about?
Uh, you know, at home I'm usually drinking Yamazaki products. I guess is probably. I mean, I've got my non-age stated Hakushu here, which has been very kind to me, and I've got a bottle of Yamazaki as well that I sip on occasionally.
Okay.
But
So yeah, so
sorry, I'm gonna sneeze.
Suntory single malts. A little bit of sneezing in Tokyo today.
That was a good one. I
Yeah.
muted my
Yeah.
mic so that you guys
It's
didn't
funny,
have your ears blown off.
you're a Suntory home drinker and I'm a Nikka home drinker.
Oh,
Yeah, so I got my
rivalry.
Yoichi single malt here. And
Okay.
I just got the Taketsuru, the new series. I haven't opened this yet,
Nice.
but the new Taketsuru, which is the blend, and I have the Miyagi Kyo as well somewhere in a closet. But yeah,
Okay.
I've been sipping through the Yoichi when I want my Japanese whiskey. I think mainly because it's easier to find here. You know
Is it?
the well, but I mean, bottle shops have relationships with different distilleries, and
Sure.
so you know you'll have a really well regarded bottle shop that doesn't have the best shochu from a maker that you like because they don't have a relationship with that maker, and so he's sending the good stuff to other people. They might have the main brand, but they won't have the good stuff. And I think it's the same way with these whiskey relationships. So the shop that I was talking about earlier, where I bought the Glendalough and some of the other nice whiskeys that I've gotten recently, some of the rums that I bought, some of the rum I sent you is actually from that same shop. They're apparently a Nikka house, right? Because they've got anything that's available from Nikka at that point in time is on their shelf, and there's almost nothing from Suntory.
Yeah.
So
Sure. Sure. Sure.
there
Sure.
seems to be that loyalty in the way they line
Yeah,
it
there
up.
could be some politics involved, and then also, I mean, we know from our own experience the things that we've been learning about doing business in this country and also in the States is that a lot of times suppliers will just want to make sure that the places that they choose to have or that they allow their products to be sold in are not too close geographically to another one of the places that's selling it, so they don't kind of so that somebody
Hmm.
gets kind of their own neighborhood, I guess is
Right.
what they some of these smaller makers try to do. Now if you're making volume, then you don't care and you allow anybody who's interested pretty much to have a crack at it. But a lot of the
Hmm.
smaller guys, Kavalan might be one of them. Most of the shochu that we drink is made by very small producers who probably will actually actively resist some placements of their products.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then there's sometimes when I see like a really good whiskey shows a really good shochu, for instance, hard to get shochu shows up in a chain supermarket in Tokyo. I'm like, how did that happen? Like, did somebody
Yeah.
make a mistake, or are they desperate,
Hmm.
or what's going on? Because this is really not how they normally play ball. They normally would never allow their product to show up on a shelf in this chain supermarket,
Hmm. Hmm.
especially a place that has a reputation for cheap prices or low prices. And one
Right.
thing that a lot of makers, suppliers are loath to have happen is
Hmm.
get in a situation where their bottles are being discounted.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
an interesting calculus from everybody's
Right.
vantage point, I think.
Yeah, I had that experience. There's a grocery store chain here in Fukuoka called Bon Rapas, which is it's kind of premium. It's I guess you'd almost call it like the Whole Foods of our local supermarket chains. Little even a little nicer than Whole Foods as far as the quality of the what they have available. They have a really nice wine selection. They've got some spirits, and they have a closed whiskey cabinet that includes the royal household, which is an almost impossible to find whiskey that's sold exclusively, I think, to the royal families in Europe and to the Japanese royal family. But occasionally bottles get out into the wild. They've got that in that supermarket behind glass. And next to it was the Komagatake 2020 limited edition. And I was like, how did they get the Mars? I was less interested in the royal household because who knows what that is. But the, well, that probably is a world whiskey. Who knows? But the Komagatake 2020, which is like probably my favorite Japanese whiskey right now. It's just so nice, even though it's so young. They had that, and then I was
Yeah.
like, how could they do that? Because it's a grocery store chain. But then I actually, as I stepped back and looked at the shelves, almost all of the mass market brands they had were from Mars. So they had the
Okay.
Cosmo Maltage, they had the Lucky Cat, they had the different things that are from Mars, but they don't have much Suntory or Nikka. So
Mm.
apparently they're a Mars house. So
Yeah,
yeah.
and Maya just chimes in with more on the Komagatake
Yeah. And
angle and the
Chichibu,
blend
yeah, that
between Chichibu and yeah. I haven't tried them.
have not seen it in the wild, have not tried it. Would love to
Yeah.
get my hands on
The only
either bottle.
Komagatake take product that I have is one that you helped me find, which is
That's the 2020. Yep.
the 2020. Yeah, straight up.
Yeah. I found that when I was in Okinawa, walked into a random little family liquor store. Again, one of these places that services bars and restaurants rather than customers. They're really not like they're just boxes on the floor around where you would normally walk, and you just have to step gingerly.
Yeah,
And they
they're
had
like
an
a
entire
distributor almost. Or-
yeah, they had an entire case of that, and I was like, "How many can I buy?" They're like, "As many as you want," because nobody knows what it is here. None of the shops were buying it.
So I think you
I
bought
cleared it
or
out.
caused to be purchased at least 4 of them, right?
Oh no, we bought the entire case over about 3
2
days.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Got a bottle to you. Got a bottle to our buddy Maurice, and
One
then
to Gabe at least. Yeah.
Gabe took 1 or 2, and I took the rest. Yeah, so I've got my backups for my because I
See,
really
I'm
like
going to
that
get
whiskey.
one online so that I can actually crack that open. I want to have one backup.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I would love to get my hands on the blend. Do you know anything about the backstory on the blends here, the Chichibu and Komagatake?
Yeah, I don't really. I think it's, as far as I know, the first blend collaboration between major distilleries in Japanese history. The blending
Yeah,
has not been a
as we've
thing
been
here.
talking repeatedly about how they don't
Yeah.
share and stuff, and I
Yeah.
guess a couple of them have decided, well, let's try it, see what we can do. Maybe something beautiful can happen, and I would imagine that it's pretty beautiful.
Yeah,
Um,
and those are two of the distilleries that I really respect.
Yeah, sure.
Mars has
Yeah,
been doing pretty
absolutely.
great things.
Yeah.
And then Chichibu is Ichiro's malt, for those who aren't familiar with the distillery name. And Ichiro's malt obviously has become a really, really famous brand around the world. And they're a small shop, but they do really, really good things. So I'm really glad that it's those two makers that are collaborating. And it sort of makes sense because they're like number 3 and number 4 in Japanese whiskey, maybe number 3 and number 5. Chichibu might
Yeah.
still be smaller than Akashi, but if they are, not by much. I don't actually know their
Yeah.
annual sales. But you definitely got Suntory and Nika is 1 and 2, and then I'm pretty sure Mars is 3.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Keating's in there somewhere too, right? But anyway, I forget about them because they sound like a beer maker to me.
They are. Evan's over on watching on YouTube, and he's talking about German whiskey. I'm not sure I've ever had a whiskey from Germany.
Yeah, I have not. I've not had a German whiskey. I've never been to Germany either, so
Oh, you
it
haven't?
wasn't even a chance. I've not. It's
No kidding.
If you look at my map of places I have and haven't been, there are 2 really, really big emissions. Germany's one of them, and Spain is the other. I've never been to Spain.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I was in the Madrid airport, but a 3-hour layover in airport doesn't qualify as being in country to
It
me.
does not. It certainly
Yeah.
does not. Unless
I mean, I
you're
spent a week
like
in Portugal.
North Korean or another place that we're not allowed to be. But if you get a layover in one of those airports, then that sort of counts.
Yeah. Okay. So then I've been to Luxembourg.
Okay.
I
I don't know if we're not allowed to go there. It's just there's not
Yeah.
many opportunities.
Yeah, but no, I've never been to Spain. Those are I would say probably the my 2 countries I want to visit most, and South Korea as well. I have not been there, which is silly because it's 30-minute flight from Fukuoka.
Yeah, we're going.
Yeah, we'll fix that.
Armando has chimed in on the
They did a blend as well.
Saburo Maru and Nagahama released joint whiskeys recently, but Chichibu and Mars exchanged malts before.
In time.
Okay, yeah. So I remember reading that the Mars Chichibu thing was a long time in the making, or it wasn't something done super recently, or the decision wasn't made super recently. But yeah,
That'd be fun to get our hands on some of this. I think some real blended Japanese whiskey, could be really interesting. Because each of these distilleries have really distinct flavor and aroma profiles. So once you get to blending, it could be fascinating new area of exploration.
Absolutely. Well, Yeah, and Maya continues to chime in on Facebook, and I think her recollection is correct. She says the might have been 5 years in the making, and I that
Mhm.
sounds familiar to me according to
Mhm.
what I remember reading. Hopefully, there's a lot more of this in the future, that places will realize the potential upside to working with others, playing nice,
Sure.
realizing that there's a very, very large market for whiskey outside of Japan. That
Mhm.
you're not going to be able to do it without that extra supply. So you better start playing nice with other people.
That's right. But I think Chichibu is probably a really great example of what a world whiskey could be with their malt and grain, right? Where they blended whiskeys from all of the major whiskey producing regions into a single drink.
Hmm.
And it's very well regarded. Uh, People enjoy it. Unfortunately, I don't have a bottle here in Japan, but I have one in storage back in the States.
Oh, do you?
So
Okay.
yeah, an older bottling of it. But yeah, so there's um, world whiskey is certainly interesting, and people should enjoy their whiskey however they like it, and not be too precious about provenance and rules and that kind of thing, right? A good drink is a
Well,
good drink.
as long as we have transparency as
Fair, fair.
part
Yeah,
of the formula, then cool. I mean,
yeah.
just tell us where you made it. That's all we need to know. Tell us what's in it.
Tell us how you made it, where you made it, and
Mm-hmm. And then we'll be,
fair.
and then consumers will generally be pretty accommodating of what it is, as long as it tastes good. So
Sure.
yeah, the amount of the gigantic shift that has taken place in Japan with people recalibrating their understanding of what is Japanese whiskey, and then also the fact that the winner of the San Francisco, spirits competition, World Spirits Competition, was for Japanese whiskey, was not actually a Japanese whiskey, not made in Japan, and that's
That's right.
just, it's been wild. It's just been
Yeah.
like, somebody's not paying attention.
That's happened a couple times recently, but I think it's I think Tokyo Whiskey and Spirits Competition has decided to comply with the Japanese labeling standards beginning next year, and I'm hoping other competitions will follow suit, right?
Yeah,
Because then that's going to force makers to be more transparent. So,
yeah. I hope somebody gets the message. Here's
mhm.
a question that just came in from Ruben on Facebook.
Why
Hey
are
y'all,
these
why
exchange
are the
malts?
exchange malts only released in Japan? I think it's probably because of the limited quantity.
Hmm.
That's just an assumption on my part, but they are very hard to get a hold of here in
Yep.
Japan, which is why
Yeah.
neither Steven nor I have seen them yet. I don't
Yeah.
know where
I
to
haven't even
go. I
seen
think
that. Oh, yeah.
it's going to be a secondary market type of thing.
Hmm.
Probably going to have to buy them at auction online,
Yeah.
potentially.
Yeah. I should swing by that shop, because they do sell Mars every so often. So if they've got a hold of that, I know the main liquor store I was telling you about, where I buy most of my Western spirits, they allocate everything to bars and restaurants for those
Okay.
really premium stuff. I can't. They'll have it. I'll see the box sitting there, and I'll say, "Is that available?" And they say no. Like the Yakushima aging, that's Sanuki peated. They just won't sell it to me. But the grocery store that had the 2020 limited, they might, who knows, there might be a bottle sitting next to the royal household. So I should probably swing by there sooner rather than later. It's probably my job for tomorrow.
Yeah, you got to kind of swoop in and grab these things before somebody else finds it.
Yeah. Or go back to Okinawa. I bet you there's a case of it sitting in that that bottle shop.
There's your there's your dealer right there.
Yeah, they're like, I hope that guy comes back in who bought the case last time.
Yeah. Hey.
Should call him up.
Well, cool. Um, I think this was good. We're at right at 30 minutes right now, so maybe
Yeah,
we can kind of
sure.
round it
Keep it
out
short.
right there. Keep it short, mercifully short, and I'm gonna pop something else open to just it is World Whiskey Day after all, so I might as well try a couple of different things before I
There you
sink
go.
sink back into my normal routine of sweet potato shochu.
Did you finish that
So
first class of John Meyer?
I did.
Wow. Yeah, I've been nursing this. I'm not used to drinking things of this proof.
Well, yeah, this is my first sip of the day of anything, so starting at 11 p.m. is not normal for me, but you know, trying to. I was out and about a little bit today, so I didn't have a chance.
No worries.
I think I'll come back home to the Hakushu next.
There you go.
Before heading back to Kagoshima with my sweet potato shochu selection. Anyways, everybody out there, thank you very much for joining in on this unannounced and kind of just off the cuff, unplanned edition of Japan Distilled. And we hopefully will have the inspiration to do more of these in the future, especially if we can keep track of all of these random world whatever days, which seem to just sneak up on us every time. So if you know of a special commemorative day coming up that you would like us to celebrate or talk about, then let us know. Send us a DM or something. Track us down on Twitter or Instagram, and we'll definitely consider it. When is World Gin Day? Because I got a shit ton of gin.
I think those happen every month.
That's called Thursday, Chris.
Yeah. They're seriously, I feel like there was like National Burger Day or International Burger Day happened like 6 times a couple of years ago. It's like they're just making it up now. This is not a real day. So we need to look into when all these days are and put them on our calendar.
I'm gonna create a whole slate of shochu and food days. The first one's gonna be shochu and gyoza day, and then the second one's gonna be shochu
tomorrow.
and pizza day. Yep, and then the shochu.
That's Monday.
It's just gonna keep going. Yep,
365 of them.
Awamori and oyster day, and just on and on and on. You gotta put international at the front.
That's right.
International rice shochu and blinis day.
Actually, a really great pairing is Hakutake Zen Koji, which there's a 100% koji fermentation rice shochu from Takahashi, the folks who make Hakutake Shiro, and Popeye's fried chicken.
Oh yeah.
That is an absolutely amazing pairing.
That's fun.
Put that on my top 5 food pairings.
Sometimes this stuff just like the food elevates the drink elevates the food, and you just have this magical, sparkly.
That's right. I was so surprised. I never thought I'd find a shochu that paired with Popeye's fried chicken, and yet it worked.
Dollar Bill comes through with the World Gin Day on June 12th.
Now, is World Gin Day different than International Gin Day? Just so we can keep it straight in our calendars.
So that the maybe Gin Day is only for Dutch and the and
Geneva
England and
English Old Tom,
and then everybody else is World Gin. I don't know. We're gonna have to get some clarification on that. Thank you, Bill, for
June 12th. We're gonna have to do another one of these.
June 12th. Okay, somebody put it in our calendar. Put it in the calendar.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody, you heard it here first. We'll be back on June 12th for one of these less impromptu tastings, and we're gonna definitely be talking about Japanese gin at that time. That'll definitely come up. So mark your calendars.
That'll be in the podcast feed at some point too. We're definitely going to go into Japanese gin. Yeah, acquired quite a few interesting bottles and excited to dive into it. So, yeah, easier to find than the interesting Japanese whiskeys.
Seems like it, for the most part. Yeah, yep. They're not as limited. All right, cool. Fantastic. Thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you, Stephen.
Yeah, thank you, Christopher.
And to all of I drank all my stuff, so I'm gonna pour a little bit more of the 4-grain so I can kanpai on the way out. A little bit more, just a splash. And of course I dribbled it down the side of the bottle. Okay.
Careful. All right. From
all of us here in Japan to all of you everywhere out there in Japan Distilled land, a very hearty and heartfelt kanpai.
Kanpai.